Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Mania 7 Key World Cup 2024. We have had 8 spectacular matches for the round of 24 weekend. That is now done and dusted. All we have left to show you guys is the round of 16 Mappool Showcase. As always, my name is Sparky and I am joined in commentary booth this time around by none other than SurfChew85. Surf, how you doing?
Good night from the Philippines. It's 3 a.m. and it's kind of fun to be in the commentary booth this late.
Yeah, it's always an exciting time. But, I mean, nothing more exciting than being awake at the late hours, than recapping some pretty interesting maps. I think you guys have cooked up a pretty nice assortment of very challenging maps for the next couple of matches going on next weekend. And I think without further ado, we can probably just get this thing on the road here and start going into the first map of the round of 16.
And as usual with the rice pool, we will be starting up with the speed pick. We have, I'm not sure if I could say the name of the artist on stream. Somebody could confirm that. But we have Toromi Hearts 2, and this is a sped up version. And obviously, as I mentioned, this is a speed pick. And just for the record, this is uprated to 1.2 times its original speed. And that's already saying that like the original itself is already pretty fast. Similar to what we had for RC1 Luminaria from round of 24. Yes, like we're seeing a lot of single streams here, like lots of stair patterning, and especially that we're transitioning to that part of the tournament where the top teams are going to be coming in, and we're going to be seeing a few more complicated patterning, like a bit more abrasiveness in the charts.
Yeah, for sure. Just still sticking with the theme of the single note streams being the main focus, a couple of chords here and there on either hand, but nothing too terribly dense in comparison to something like, say, the chord stream pick, which we'll be seeing a little bit later on. That being said, varying snaps here as we make our way into the back half now. A lot of 1/4, 1/6 getting thrown in as we see a couple of chords come in through these basically transition sections before getting into the real synth runs that make up a majority of this chart.
Well, the one thing I guess that maybe some players might find comfort here is that, like, while it does look complicated on stream, a lot of these patterns are actually pretty comfortable on the hand. And the only thing that everyone has to be super careful is the speed and just making sure they don't find a miss hit somewhere, especially with these quick bursts now.
Yeah, for sure. This outro can definitely trip up a couple of players, but if you've been able to handle it for 99% of the duration, the final 1% shouldn't be all that bad. So, just quickly as it started, it is now over just that tiny bit over 2 minutes. Quick little in and out to start things off. And we can roll on over to the second map of the pool. It is going to be Memory at Angel's Landing. This is Level 51's first MWC 7K 2024 chart. Just a fun fact little there as we introduce the round of 16 chord stream pick now.
And something that the players who have played in the previous World Cup would notice is that this is a slight increase in difficulty from what we have in Primatrix. Something I actually noticed from test playing is that a lot of this chart is actually reliant more on double stair movement, which is not really something that we would have had by this time in the tournament last year. While there are some more bracket heavy sections as well that are basically inserted within the chart, a lot of the players should still find this fairly straightforward, fairly comfortable. And as what I mentioned throughout the entire weekend, the chord stream pick will definitely be one of the more favored picks by any of the teams in this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. We saw it during the round of 24 weekend. Rice 2 was basically constantly looked at, if not picked, by a majority of the teams throughout the weekend. As you mentioned, it is one of the more comfortable skill sets a lot of the players in this tournament are acquainted with. So the only real thing that would stop a team from doing it is either the BPM, which in this case would be 160, just 5 clicks faster than last round, or the patterning, which, I mean, to be fair, isn't the hardest in the world, but definitely a bit of a step up if you were in like last year's iteration in that year's round of 16. So, I mean, probably still going to be a pretty favorable pick, as you mentioned, for a lot of the teams, especially now we're getting the top 8 involved this round.
Another thing is that the patterning in this chart compared to what we had in round of 16 last year is that like the latter sections are a bit more abrasive. Like there's a lot more density in the chart. And honestly, during test playing like a few weeks ago, like that was kind of a surprise coming off just trying out the previous year's pool. Now
For
let's move
sure.
on to maybe some 4K players PTSD here. Wave Tapper, and this is going to be our primary core jack pick in this pool. And unlike what we had from the previous round, this is a bit more to the standard core jack chart that a lot of the players would have been expecting in a 7K tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, core jack, even in say like a 4-key sense, is usually the most comfortable skill set for a lot of players, even more so than say like jump stream or chord stream in 7-key sense. So unsurprisingly, last round, basically Rice 3 was permabanned for a majority of the round. Would not be surprised if we saw that continue, because of the fact that you reach a certain point where, because of the fact that everybody in the tournament is capable of swinging a very high score on a chart like this, because of the fact that it's relatively slow, the patterning isn't all that complicated. You don't want to run the risk of just getting out-act by a team that you feel might be able to have a better performance overall, or just knowing that a singular miss or even just a singular bad judgment could swing the match in your opponent's favor. So it'll be very interesting to see how teams approach this particular pick. See if maybe we start seeing some protects thrown this way just to ensure that your team has a pick in the back pocket to kind of throw out against an opponent.
Indeed, and another interesting thing to look at in this chart in particular is some individual players' performances as well. I remember joking with Potassium F last night, like in between matches, there's a certain player that is in the top 8 teams that we were kind of sad that we weren't able to see in the round 24, because we would have seen some pretty nutty, pretty amazing accuracy scores, and that certain player should be able to shine very well in this chart alongside with a lot of the players that we haven't seen yet in the round 24 weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, this is your bread and butter consistency test. But that being said, as we make our way into this outro, try not to autopilot through some of these outro patterns. There are some 1-4 bursts to kind of watch out for. They can catch you out, and these are 1-3 spacebar hits. Don't want to drop an FC right there at the very end, because this is going to be hotly contested as we get into that round of 16 weekend. But we can move right on to Rice 4, and it's going to be our tech pick. It is going to be the Flashbulbs 9 dump.
And this, as similar to the previous pool structure, Rice 4 is dedicated as our technical pick. And unlike what we had from the previous round, this immediately goes off right off the bat. Right? You're bombarded with a lot of patterns, lots of flams, irregular stream sizes here, like some snaps that are kind of, I forgot the exact word for it, but it just keeps on changing up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something else to note, I think a lot of people kind of fear when the word tech is thrown out, because a lot of people kind of start to attribute that to like a lot of mini jacks making an appearance, a lot of just jack oriented patterns. Not going to be the case here. A little bit retuned to avoid using them as much. They do still exist in some capacity in this chart, but it's gonna mainly focus on those grace notes, on those flam sections, these varying snaps, starts, stops, to really provide the majority of the difficulty here. So for those of you thinking, oh, okay, mini jack pick, not going to be the case, at least for this round.
The one thing about technical picks as well is actually pretty satisfying to play is that if you're confident that you're able to pull off a score, chances are it's going to be a really good one as well. So a lot of the higher level teams might be favoring this pick very well, and that is something possibly like the players coming off the round of 24, knowing that they're facing tougher teams, like this is maybe one of those charts in the pool that they have to be super wary of, and if they ever have the chance to be in the position to be playing this, they have to go into it with such confidence as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to your point, when you're going up against those higher seeded opponents, confidence is the name of the game. You can't really go in there with a negative mindset, thinking that you're basically starting a map off with a disadvantage, because you never know. With a pick like this, I mean, one little section can go horribly awry when you're trying to transition between everything that is being asked of you, that you could probably surprise yourself if you can hold on to the FC, maybe not the highest of accuracies, but just competitive enough to be able to sneak away a potential breakpoint against maybe an opponent you feel is higher level than you. But with that being said, that will do it for our tech pick in this pool, and we're almost done with the Rice picks as a whole. We're gonna move on to Rice 5, and it's gonna be New York back raise. It's gonna be our mixed Rice pick.
And similar to what we had in round 24, like a mixed Rice pick is more of a general test of ability in a way. Personally, I do view this as, again, one of those picks that the higher level teams are expected to favor in terms of their picking strategy, like making sure to basically outplay their opponents should they be in a position where they need it. For example, these bracket streams are actually super abrasive on the hands, like spider double stair patterns, like the single column grabs. I think a friend of mine calls them Spider-Man patterns for some reason, and they transition to very heavy chords, not exactly the most fun to hit.
Yeah, for sure. So on top of it being a little bit denser, they wanted to note that patterns are a little bit more straightforward than Rice 4, but you do have that elevated OD to worry about as well. Clocking it at 8.5, going to be a little bit ensuring that players are playing these patterns precisely, not just kind of futzing around and kind of mashing their way through some of the more speedier sections. It's going to really punish you if you're kind of trying to mash your way through it. So definitely got to watch out for that. A little bit of a delay section here coming through. Some of these snaps, not straightforward one force, little implied flams, implied grace notes here and there that if you're not paying attention could cause you to drop some accuracy, maybe you drop a miss if you're not too careful as we transition on into the last quarter here.
And basically what we see is arguably, once you get to the match times, like I guess a lot of us in the commentary booth should be taking note of that one section, because I think if there are going to be big swings in that chart, it's going to be in that section, as we're seeing like in the final quarter of the chart, while the patterns are still super abrasive, like there's still the occasional burst, like the chart does start to wind down a little bit, and if anything, if something happens here, it's usually most likely a stamina issue from the players already at some point.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see how some of these teams start to approach this particular map. Again, similar to some of the other picks as well. Maybe different reasons for wanting to get rid of, maybe wanting to keep around. So, going to be interesting to watch the match dynamics unfold going into next weekend. But that will do it for the entirety of the Rice Pool. We are moving on to the first LN pick, and it's going to be our LN coordination pick, as it usually is for LN1.
My favorite skill set, element coordination. Although I'm really bad at it. No name making an element coordination chart actually shocked me. Like, but when the time the pools are starting to be made, like the custom charts, and when I saw no name, oh, all right. Anyways, this chart pays a lot of homage apparently to my chart from the round of 16 last year, Hanano Yakusoku, and it is. And I do say like last year's coordination pick might be easier for a lot of players. So given that there is a need to maybe increase the difficulty for a lot of the LN picks, especially LN coordination, going into this year. So this chart is, if I'd say, actually like a lot of times harder than what we saw from last year. Though the patterns are a bit more straightforward. Honestly, I think there are some players in the roster that might find this easier than Team 37 from the round of 24 pool, just because of like there's more notes.
Yeah, usually when you increase the density on coordination picks, players tend to find their footing a little bit easier. It's always a case where when you increase the amount of columns, just keeping track of which fingers are being asked to do something while you're holding on to several other columns becomes a bit of a tall order. And from the sounds of it, this one feels very telegraphed. If you can keep track, very oral based in terms of the LN movements. So if you're able to keep track of everything you're hearing, you should be able to kind of feel your way through where the notes are supposed to land. And it's really just a matter of keeping the appropriate fingers held down. And true to form with the LN coordination picks, not a lot of combo to work with. So finding breaks, especially in that middle portion, could potentially swing an entire match one way or another if one or both of the players find a drop on a specific country. So, I mean, usually LN1, frequent target of bans, but maybe somebody will want to protect it, keep it around because they can swing a performance on it.
Before we move on to the next chart, I'd just like to take note of this score. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
No
singular
name?
200.
Yeah. And dude, this is absolutely ridiculous. Well, anyways, let's move on to personally what I find my most favorite chart of this entire set. We have Wayanko's Poodle. And those who were part of like the early days of Osimania know of a chart by 17VA. Like, it was a ranked chart. And Maple Syrup did this one justice. Like, it invokes the same nostalgia in a way. But yeah, this is our LN density pick. And as with any of the LN density picks that we see around the early to mid game in a 7K World Cup, like this usually is that one pick where maybe Rice only players might find this a bit favorable towards their skill set, because this was played like a core stream in some certain sections. Like, they just have to be super careful. And something that I want to say as well, that regarding this chart, there are some certain sections here that get super abrasive, so you have to be careful, especially those staggered holds. Super easy to drop add-on.
Yeah, if you're trying to, as you mentioned, kind of play it like the chord stream pick, you do have to sacrifice some other elements to be able to make it through relatively unscathed. And release timings, when you start to vary them up, it's not the most straightforward. You have those staircase releases, like you mentioned, very prime opportunities for accuracy to be dropped. So if you are finding yourself behind, if you can keep those clean, could potentially amount to a bit of a comeback if the other team isn't too careful. But with that being said, I mean, you were just inundated with things to do across all 7 columns for such a long time throughout this chart. And it's not the longest by any stretch of the imagination either, just under 2 minutes. So, I mean, some of these closer matches when the seeds get really close together could potentially see some wild back and forth if we're lucky here.
Another thing to note is that those teams who find trouble in Crush Alcohol in the round 24 might want to give this a practice as well. Because there are some things in Crush Alcohol that do transition very well into this chart as well.
A very
Anyways,
nice
let's
thing to
move
note.
on to LN3. And we have Dasby's Adios. And this is our LN mix pick. And similar to what we had with Crush Alcohol, uh, this is a little bit of everything. Like, you have some control aspects, you have some density aspects, and man, I the intro section of this chart is like absolutely fun to play just because of that control aspect. Like, if you can pull that off, oh, you're golden.
Yeah, strong starts are probably going to be the name of the game on this pick. Would not be surprised if we saw players starting off at around, what, like 97, 98% accuracy. Just some early 200s could potentially dot the landscape. And you start to get into this next section around 530 combo where you just get these, like, grace note dumps of LNs to work with before transitioning on into the next chorus section where it starts to get a little bit more in control. Some releases to watch out for, but mostly coordination based as you continue on.
Like, this section is a bit more reminiscent to what we would have seen in, I'd say, like around level 30, level 40, like level 30, level 40, starting auto jam in a way. Like, there is some density aspect right there, but that density aspect is like the more LN control ish kind of density. Like, they're pretty easy to pull off if you're comfortable with them, but absolutely excruciating on your mind if you're that one person who needs to practice stuff like this. Because I do notice like there are some shield usages here, some light inverse inverse patterning as well. Lots of places to commit mistakes if you're not prepared.
Yeah, just overall the coordination needed to keep the fingers in check. I feel like that's just the name of the game with 7 key LN as a whole. Just keeping track of where you're supposed to be doing things at any given time is just a skill set in and of itself. And so the teams that can swing performances on these LN picks, I mean, you have you have three really nice picks to work with this time around. But it is only going to be three, and we can move on to the hybrid maps for the round of 16. We're going to start off with Juggernaut's Invoke.
This is the first stand chart we'll be seeing in this World Cup. Maybe more will be the only one. Who knows? We won't spoil. Anyways, similar to what we had with Hybrid 1 in the round 24 pool, like, this is a pretty straightforward chart. Not too much to rely on. Like, you're going to see some elements of what we saw on LN2, LN3, but again, lots of reliance on Rice Act. Though I do want to say that, especially with how this thing is charted, like, there's some technicalities that you might have. There's some technical patterns here that you might want to take note of and be able to negotiate well. Like this section right here.
Yeah, a lot of grace notes left and right, whether it be LN graces, these Rice graces, a little bit of snap variants as well. They're not all just straight like 1-4s, 1-6. They do play around with your timing just a little bit, so you can't, as mentioned in some of the earlier Rice picks, kind of mash your way through some of these. That being said, I mean, ergonomically, not, I would say, the most taxing. That being said, I mean, I think you're better qualified to state the comfort level that the players would be experiencing on a map like this as we make our way into the last third here.
Well, to be fair, it's not really too taxing. Like, usually you see these stairs here. They're charted in a way where you could just roll your fingers on the keyboard. You should be fine for the most part. I'd say maybe the hardest section to negotiate here is when the stairs start to break up a bit, and with what we see, we're starting to see actually. But again, they're still super straightforward. But if you're not careful, it's super easy to lose act here as well.
And with that being said, I mean, everything pretty telegraphed overall. You can kind of tell where the LNs are going to start to come through. You can kind of tell where those rice bursts are going to start to rain down. And being able to transition between the two of them, I mean, really is the name of the game for most hybrid picks. This one, no exception. So we can move on to our second hybrid of the pool, and it is going to be Sequential Emotions.
This is our technical hybrid pick here. While HB1 has some technical patterns, it's still pretty straightforward. But this chart, on the other hand, especially with how Makiba has been putting out these charts, like the style of their charting has shown a lot of technical demand in a way. As we're seeing here, like we're seeing some staggered release timings already with these quasi 1/4 LNs. I can't imagine using that term. And some rice streams as well inserted in these LN patterns. Some mini jack usages. You have to be careful.
Yeah, if there were to be a map where we could kind of coin it as like a mini jack heavy map, I feel like this one might be, as we're transitioning on into this back half here. The transitions as well, just basically the overall feel begins to change, and with that the style of the mapping begins to change as well, where you had these kind of structured 1/4 LNs at the beginning. Now you get this more freeform, more rice oriented section with some of these LNs making an appearance, but this might be a section where the more rice-oriented teams might start to mount a bit of a comeback. Then the LNs start to make their appearance as we continue on into the final quarter. The LNs start to get a little bit more consistent, a little bit more intrusive to the performance overall, and then we can start to see a little bit of back and forth begin to manifest itself, especially come match time. Would not be surprised to see some comebacks being mounted as we make our way to this outro.
As you mentioned, like the strategy wise, most likely this pick is going to be that one 50-50 pick. Like we get to the stage where it's already around like the last few picks of the match. This might be one of those that are just remaining, and this might come at the time where in the position where both teams are just not sure where they have the advantage, and this might be that one gamble pick that they would want to play.
For sure. But with that being said, we can move on to the final normal pick in this pool. It is going to be Fana. And this is going to be our wildcard hybrid. I believe this was also an original song from the OS World Cup 2023 as well. So those of you that watched that might be familiar with this song. It's going to be the 7-key version, or at least a 7-key take on it.
And I think we will be seeing more of these those original songs coming from other World Cups that are going to be used in other game modes, being able to see their own take on it. Well, anyways, about this chart, well, unless you have problems with LN1, this might actually be the hardest pick in this entire pool. If, as I said, like there are some picks that are going to be favored by the higher seeded teams, this is the higher seed favored pick. Like lots of abrasive patterns, like lots of very fast patterning here that are extremely demanding on the fingers if you're not prepared. I mean, I'd say even the sight read for a lot of the players might be not enough, especially with this section here. Like this, like it looks technical it's not technical as you watch it. It's going to be more technical once you get to the actual gameplay itself.
Yeah, for sure. Just a lot of one-hand action, both on the right and left hand, being asked to do some pretty complex things, being able to coordinate some pretty heavy rice bursts all on 3 of the same fingers, just while being asked to do things on your other hand at the same time. Something is going to give at some point. And like you mentioned, during the sight read might be a little messy. Might take a couple of playthroughs to really get down what's being asked of you in some of these sections. And the transitions aren't the most straightforward either. You're being asked to do some pretty complex LN things, some pretty complex rice patterning as well. and constantly shifting, not really able to get your bearings, not as telegraphed as some of the other hybrids in this pool. So, like you mentioned, very on the upper end of round of 16 in terms of difficulty. But I mean, if your team's brave enough to go for something like this, I mean, more power to you. This could potentially be the closest thing to a quote-unquote free point that your team can get this round if you can pull off a consistent score on it.
And I think the chart itself already says a lot of things. So it is now time for us to move on to the final chart of this Mappool Showcase, the tiebreaker. And we have quotes Sub-Zero. And oh boy, this is actually a pretty good step up from what we have with Butterfly Effect from last year. But like, there's a few sections in this chart that maybe I say isn't too bad to play per se. Not too abrasive. There is that level of difficulty that you have to be super careful. Like there are sections here that you absolutely cannot afford to miss.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there are going to be individual sections throughout this song that test different skill sets before kind of blending all together in those transitional phases. And based on the notes that we have from the person that made the replay, each part individually isn't too terribly hard to get through relatively unscathed, but putting it all together in a high pressure situation, that is really what's gonna put those teams that find themselves in a situation where they have to play this, that's what's going to put them into that next round and could potentially see them through into the quarterfinals next weekend or the following weekend.
Section-based charting is such a fun thing to do. You see, basically what stand was it charted by stand if I'm not mistaken. Like the way this is charted is what you're given like a measure or two of a certain pattern, and then you're transition to another one, and then to another one. You're basically doing a different thing every single time you hear maybe similar sound. And I'd say it's actually pretty hard to maintain focus on that since this chart really likes to overload your senses in a way.
Yeah, because you can't really hone in on one particular skill set. You're not given like 30 seconds to a minute of just like pure rice or pure chord stream or like delay or like single note streams. You're given a couple of measures to kind of settle in before you're being asked to do maybe like an LN burst, LN coordination, some release sections as well, some shields thrown in here or there. And like I mentioned, just putting it all together is going to be the real task for any countries that have to face off on this particular pick.
And seeing as what happened in the round of 24 weekend, we might be seeing a few of these matches going the distance as well. So again, for a lot of the players, I mean, kind of knowing the tournament scene on Mania in general, a tiebreaker is usually the most neglected chart during practice. You cannot afford to do that with this one.
Oh, for sure. And you get, I mean, just very visibly a step up from what you're being asked to do in the general map pool in terms of overall difficulty. The density sections kind of kick it up a notch. The coordination sections kick it up a notch. And really, I feel like the only thing that a lot of players will be able to rest their hats on are just those short little rice sections where they can kind of get their bearings a little bit, just reorient themselves a little bit, and just duke it out everywhere else, because there are more than likely going to be some pretty significant trades going back and forth. If you can swing an FC on this, hats off to you.
I mean, we're already given a taste of mini invert sections in what I would say is actually the true break section of this chart. Right, similar to what we had around 24, the tiebreaker there. Like the break section was actually a full-on LN coordination section where a miss is fatal. Like we're being treated the same way with this chart.
Yeah, just no rest for the weary. You're already making it to the last quarter here. The LNs just don't stop, and you're being asked to do all these rice things in between. It's gonna be interesting if and when we do get to a situation like that. And as we continue on into this outro, you're finally free from the majority of the hard LN. You get this big bombastic heavy chords coming through the transition here to the end.
And finally, you're given some respite from all of the action. If you can deal with the inverts, though.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be a bit of a test. Well-roundedness, name of the game for this tiebreaker. But if you can make it, then you pretty much deserve to advance on to the next round. And that will do it for the round of 16 Mappool Showcase. Hopefully you all have enjoyed. To the teams that are going to be playing next weekend, good luck. As always, we hope to see some electrifying performances from all of you. And hopefully the maps don't give you too much trouble during the week. But Surf, do you have anything else left to add before we close things out and let people go about their merry ways?
Well, again, similar to what I said during the end of the last time I was in a Mappool Showcase. Again, thank you guys so much for looking at the pools, and shoutouts as well to the Mappool selection team and every single custom charter that has participated in this map pool in particular, and as well to the replayers. You guys are very ET. Like those scores, the scores I would only dare dream of.
You and I both.
And yeah, and good luck to all of the teams that are participating in the round of 16. And to those who are awaiting their opponents in the lower bracket, I'd say you might want to keep your skills sharp. Like, go practice this pool still, because that 1 week break with no matches might be something that you'll have to be concerned of, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting just seeing the transition. Round of 24, not a very common format, so going to see the similar 8 matches, but we're going to see the teams that got a bye this week play next weekend. So with that being said, if you want to support any of the teams that are going to be playing next weekend, or even the ones that aren't going to be playing next weekend, Surf, is there any way that we can do it for the final time this weekend?
Oh boy, I forgot to do this when I was in the booth earlier tonight. Let me do it now. The Osu Mania 7K World Cup team support banners are up now on the Osu store. If you guys want to show your support to any of the teams that you want, I mean, as far as I know, you could actually support multiple teams this time around. Like, you could buy all 24 of them if you want. Like, if you want the profile decorations, sure, let's go buy it. The team, show your support, show your patriotism, or maybe show support to your favorite players who are playing in a country that's not yours. Up to you.
Yep, and all for the low price of $2.50 USD. And like Surf mentioned, you can buy multiple this go around. So if you want, like Surf said, if you want to support all 24 countries, the only limit is the size of your bank account. So if you want to do that, if you want to be that one person that makes an impossible to scroll through profile, be our guest. And if you manage to choose the winning team for this year's World Cup, your banner will stick around just that ever so slightly bit longer than all the other ones. So if you do want to get all 24, you're guaranteed at least one sticking around that little bit longer. But with that being said, that will do it for us here. We hope you all have enjoyed. A special shout out to the folks in the background that make all this run so smoothly. And we hope to catch y'all next weekend. Until then, take care, y'all.